Welcome back to the Abundant Harvest Homestead. I'm Papa Pepper, and yes, it's dark. Power outage right now. Is this the big one? Probably not, but I do know some people who recently went through a kind of emergency drill. They decided, you know what happens if we face an extended power outage? And how would we handle it? What would cause us to really break? So what they did is they shut the power off. They didn't use any power. And they seen how long they could go, and then to determine what the weak point was in their system. And for a lot of people, there were multiple people participating in this experiment, it was water. The water was the issue. At the moment, I don't know when this power is going to come back on, but we gravity fed some water from the water lines, and we were just talking about developing some water catchment. I know some people who pretty much live off of their water catchment. You know, without water you don't live. Obviously they have more going on than that, like food too, but all their water needs are supplied by water catchment. I also know places where water catchment is illegal. Isn't that interesting? Mom was gonna go check something out outside. They're coming up the hallway here, but the point is there is no guarantee we're going to have power. I think in the end there will be power. Certain things prophesied of will kind of need power to be happening, but that doesn't mean we wouldn't go through temporary, extended even, power outages prior to that. So right now I'm glad we have 2 vehicles with batteries. I have outlet chargers for whatever I want that I can plug into the cigarette lighters with those. And then also I'm really happy for this guy over here, which is going to be the wood stove we put in before last year to preparation. I'll tell you what, without that, on a night like tonight, we're only in early December, but it's still cold. Still cold. If I was up in my native Wisconsin, it's super cold up there, and they're in like snowstorm. And right now, if I open this up and crack this for a minute, it'll probably ignite up pretty good in there and go roaring. But that's some of the reasons we moved down here. Was what if there's a power outage? In Wisconsin, we wouldn't have had water where we were at. We wouldn't have had heat where we're at. Yeah, see how that just roars right up for me? We also would have had a limited food supply. I thought, you know what if we lived somewhere where it was kill a goat or a sheep, light a candle, and throw a log on the fire. And darling, you remember the first thing Pinky said when the power went out?
Yes.
What did she ask?
If we wanted her to turn on or bring out the oil lamps.
Yeah, she said, should I get one of the oil lanterns? First thing she said. We said, it's late, we're heading to bed anyway. So what did she do instead? She wanted to light a candle for a bit, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so pretty cool to be able to have some oil lamps even. Pretty cool to be able to have this guy going. But it doesn't take care of all of our needs, and we were just about to do what before the power went out?
Can the rest of our venison.
Can the rest of our venison. If this power stays out, the first thing we're doing is we're going to start cooking up one of our freezers. I'm going to go one at a time through the freezers. We're not going to touch any of the dried goods or the canned goods as much as we're able to. And we'll work through that stuff because that's going to perish quicker. That's going to go first. It's one of the reasons that I'm very big on trying to get things canned up rather than in the freezer. I don't expect this power outage to last long. It could kick on in an embarrassing manner while I'm making this video, but there's no guarantee. I think some people say we're supposed to have a bad winter. Tell you what, have an extended power outage, that's a lot worse of a winter, isn't it? You know, interesting. Thankfully, like even this flashlight I have here, this is one of my underwater flashlights, but I have spare batteries, rechargeable batteries for it. My phone, actually, I have spare batteries, rechargeable batteries for it. They don't even give you that option on some of the newer models. They don't have removable batteries. Trust me, to run out of juice, power on my phone, and just pop out the battery, throw in a new one. Some people look at me like, what in the world? It's so much better. Better just to be able to keep going if you need to. But this is going to be also, we were just talking about water catchment. I was just talking about how I wanted to run some gutters on some things, start having our own water catchment, start doing some other things. And I was considering doing a power outage test ourselves, just if we didn't have power, what would be the weak points. One cool thing about this too, darling, besides heat, what can it do for us?
We could try to cook on it.
We have cooked on it some already.
We cooked some eggs.
We cooked some eggs, but yes, this could be, it's not a cook stove, but it could function as one because all you need to cook is heat. And this gets hot enough up here. I also actually put meat inside there before in an iron skillet. I had some smoldering coals that were pretty smoky, and I wanted to smoke flavor those hamburgers we did a while ago. So I did them with some hickory in there and imparted some smoke flavor to them. And that's one of the things too that began to weigh on me back up in Wisconsin is I now have the responsibility to not just take care of myself, but where are you? Little ones like that. Yeah. What was that?
Hi.
I have to take care of ones like that too. I don't want her super cold. I don't want her not having water. I don't want her not having food. So I have to take care of you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do I do a good job?
Yeah.
So far, so good?
Yeah.
Okay.
You say thank you, Papa?
Thank you, Papa.
Oh, you're welcome, daughter. So I just kicked up the heat a little bit there. We'll let that ride for a bit. But I will see if by the time morning rolls, if we've got power back on or not. I expect it to kick on tonight. There's no guarantee. I'm going to sleep out here on the couch tonight so I can keep an eye on the temperature. I'm going to wear a tank top. If everyone else is in the room with blankets, they're going to stay warmer. If I have a tank top on, when that fire starts dying out, it's going to wake me back up, cause me to stoke that fire, and I'm going to kind of use myself as the monitor. To make sure that the air temperature in this house is where it should be to keep everyone else warm. So that's some things to think about too. Just setting up things, and of course conservation. The first thing I did, of course, with this water was just drain some out of the lines. It'll gravity feed for a bit, but soon it won't do nothing. So I wanted to get some on hand. And then it's a time of conservation too. Even this flashlight's not going to be on forever. I might need that power later. My phone's not going to be on forever. Might need that power later. Don't light our oil lantern right away if we don't have to. We got a whole stack of big candles too, you know that, right? Up on top of the fridge high shelf is the big tall candles, like the ones they have down in Mexico and stuff too. The big tall glass ones. Yeah, we got a stack of those. And also in the top shelf of our pantry, we got some vegetable shortening. You remember how that works, right? Stuff a couple candles in that vegetable shortening, light the wick at the top level, and go for 3 days if you need to. It's good to prepare stuff ahead of time. Practice ahead of time. Have a plan. Like I said, when an 11-year-old, she 11 now?
Yes.
Oh, she just had a birthday. Way earlier this year. But when she's like, hey, should I light an oil lamp? I love that. That's the first instinct that a child has. Okay, power's out. Should I light an oil lamp? You know, do we need light right now? I think that's so cool. We all need to train ourselves up like that. And there's a lot of us now, as we are in our 30s and 40s, learning different stuff, preparing different stuff, practicing different stuff. And the cool thing is, if we raise our children learning it as we're learning it, then they grew up that way. They grew up with that skill. Even if they never need it, they at least have it. Last winter, when it was actually snowy down here, I took Bugger out, and we went and we caught minnows in the creek, and we cooked them. You know, you're not always going to need to eat minnows, but if you don't know how to, and you do need to, that ain't going to work out. It's best to know how to when you need to. So if you learn how when you don't need to, that's the time. Mama used to make me watch Survivor shows, right, darling?
Yes.
Because she knew if I watched them, I'd retain the information. And then as long as she was with me, she'd be fine. So she's got a strong vested interest to be with me. But a lot of these kids too, you know, wild edibles and all sorts of other things. We want to learn about that. We're focusing on some of that. But the kids are growing up that way. And I'll talk to older people who grew up that way. And it's amazing because a lot of times they've got, like a 20 to 40 year gap in the middle of their life when they didn't need those skills or use them much. But a lot of them, as they got older, eventually they're like, yeah, I went back to it. I was glad my dad or glad my grandpa taught me all that stuff when I was little because I still remember and I still know. And I think that's so important. I know one thing with jobs with me is I hated learning worthless information, stuff that would never come in handy again. As long as I was able to apply it in some manner, it was so much better. So when I used to run a cruise of 76 people, darling, remember that?
Yes.
It gave me a great opportunity to learn how to supervise just a crazy amount of people. And now we have 7 children. That worked out. I used to also do quite a bit of food service and cooking in bulk and either cooking at or working at or managing, restaurants. And now I've got a lot of mouths to feed. I like to cook in bulk. Sometimes we have to cook in super bulk if we want leftovers. So I think I'm going to turn in for the light night. But if this didn't cease, how would we fare? How long would we last? I think I've got a full supply of firewood ready to go for the winter. That's going to help. And we do have a lot of canned goods, but if power don't come back on, we might store some fridge food outside during the cold times and take care of the freezer stuff more quickly. And most of that's just raw blocks of stuff, you know what I mean? And a lot of times too, if it thaws and then refreezes, you lost it. So we've got big incentive for canned goods. And we decided not to can up any of our chickens, right? And that's okay. We'll probably be fine through this one. But like I said, we have no guarantees. Just glad we have resources like that one behind me. We'll see you in the morning. Well, morning comes. Power's back on, which is what's happened for, the vast majority of our lives. Doesn't mean it couldn't take a couple days though, or that something else couldn't come up. Besides getting ready to pressure can some venison, we were also in the process of making some venison jerky. And for us, we just leave the oven on really low. 170 degrees. 170 degrees is the lowest setting that we have. So this was on. So a couple things needed to happen. And all the excitement of a power outage. One, make sure to shut the gas off. I took care of that pretty much right away. Because I was aware, Gotta think of things like that. Don't get carried away with the excitement. Imagine that. Leaving the gas on, darling. And then lighting some candles to shove around here. Or lighting some, oil lanterns. Another thing is we had to pull all this meat out. We snuck it into the fridge quick with the cans of venison. Said, alright, we'll do it real quick. Open the door quick. Shove that stuff in there. Close it again so it retains as much coolness as it can. Didn't want the meat to spoil. Didn't want a gas leak. But now we're back to business. So I'm going to fire this up. And some of the littler pieces appear to be done. Some of the bigger ones are larger and fatty. So we're going to keep letting that go. But it gave me a couple other things to think about as I considered the power outage. And some things that some people may not consider when they're faced with that type of situation. Think about the stuff ahead of time. So if you wind up in that situation, you're not blindsided. So that's what I'm going to talk about. if you think about the main couple things that people generally need about daily, and I say about daily because you can make it days without drinking, days without eating, stuff like that. But people generally need to keep their bodies a certain temperature. Extreme heat ain't gonna work out too well, and extreme cold is not gonna work out too well either. If your only way to keep yourself warm involves electricity, you'd better have a generator that can help you stay warm to run whatever you're using electrically, and you also better have fuel for that generator on hand. We have a generator. Never chose to break it out for anything yet, but you're going to want to stay warm. That's why it was very important to us to put in that wood stove last year. Another thing is, with food, you want to have food stored up, and if you are canning your own goods, actually putting them in glass jars, please put a lip on your shelves. If it's just flat, things can fall off. If it's got a lip, that prevents things from just falling off. Last week we had an earthquake here. Wasn't much, but it startled me. There was definitely a movement of the earth and a noise, and I think it was a 2.8. I remember on the Richter scale, a 3.0 is 10 times what a 2.0 is, so it exponentially increases like that. That's, keep that in mind. But even here, in the Ozarks, we could have an earthquake big enough to rattle jars off the shelf. And if that was my main bet and I had all my eggs in that basket and I didn't have a lip on that, oh boy, that would be terrible, especially after all the effort that goes in to canning your own goods. Water, like I said, that's a big one. If you have an electric, well pump, that's not going to work out so well. Have a backup plan. Have a Berkey filter if you can. Have a stream or lake even, close that you can at least access some water from. Have some rain catchment set up. That's a little easier than, moving your entire property near a lake or a stream. We have some around here. There's some I would drink out of. There's some I wouldn't. But rain catchment is the one thing. And then two, if you put in a well, see if you can't put a hand pump down there with it. So that way if the power's out, you don't need a generator to run your well house. See if it's a distance that makes sense where you can actually pump by hand. See if you can put that down there when you're putting your regular well in. Those things are important. You're going to need water. You're going to need water. And drinking is only one of the aspects of water. People use it in cooking. People use it in hygiene. People use it to keep their animals alive. There's other options for water. Washing clothes eventually. And one thing that I think gets far too overlooked too often is water runs to the toilets. If you have toilets and they either head to a city sewer system or you have a septic system or something like that on, think about putting in a backup. One thing that I want to personally do is set up a whole composting toilet system here ahead of time. I want to have it ahead of time. I want to use the convenience of pooping in a toilet and pushing a little button and having it magically disappear to set me up so that if that goes away, we're not completely messed up. I tell you what, a lot of people are going to realize that their water is affected by a power outage on their second poop, their second flush. The first flush, they're going to flush, and the water in the back of the tank is going to help it disappear. The next time, they're going to flush and no water filled up the back of the tank. And they're going to be like, uh-oh, what? Then you've got that stinky problem sitting right there. I know people with outhouses. I know people putting in outhouses. As their primary source of dealing with, those numbers, number 1 and number 2. I know there's certain counties that'll give you their recommendations. How deep should it be? How wide should it be? What are the requirements to be up to whatever the county wants? There's counties that'll give you that information. You might be a little embarrassed asking about it, but probably not as embarrassed if you're sitting in a house backing up with poop. That'd probably be more embarrassing. So think about these things ahead of time. We may run, a drill here. We may see how long we can go without power. We may not, you know. But I at least have a number of things set up to bless us and help us if something does happen. And, you know, last night was just a good wake-up call reminder. Good wake-up call reminder. Again, if I had not remembered that we had the oven on, the scent probably would have, you know, made us realize it, but we could have blown up the whole house. It's not that hard to blow up the whole house in a situation like that. Watch those things. Think about those things. Do a practice run if you want to, or at least just do some research. What do we do for food preservation? What do we do to have drinkable water on hand? What do we do to keep warm? What do we do to make our poop disappear? What are you going to do? If you set some stuff up ahead of time that's even just there, you know, I've got a washing machine I made years ago. It's not our primary washing machine right now, but I have it. And we can wash that way if we want to. We can also use plungers and buckets if we want to. Done a lot of washing by hand, especially compared to some this life, you know. If we have to go back to it, we will. And we'll have a frame of reference for it. Mama makes her own soap. She makes her own laundry soap. She's got to have another batch here coming up soon. I know we're down on it. Next time she makes soap, let me know if you want me to have her run you guys through a video. We're working on some with Mama Pepper, showing off some of her stuff, because that woman, she does a lot of stuff. And definitely makes my life easier with all the skills and all the knowledge that she has. I'll say that. Vice versa, yes, because she's not, you know, bow fishing fish or shooting deer or things like that, but she's got a massive amount of skills. If you guys want more of that stuff, let us know. We're working on some people have reached out already, but yeah, her homemade soap, that'd be a good video, I think. Let us know. But hopefully you guys stay warm out there as we head into winter. Think about these things, and you know, don't get caught with your toilet overflowing and a really cold house with no food or water. That's not a good situation. Just because they pulled the plug. Don't live such a connected life to the grid that if they pull the plug, your life is over. No. Set yourselves up now that if that does happen, I'm not saying when, but if it does happen, you're good to go. Just a recommendation of mine. I'll see you guys next time. Papa out.
Thank you for watching. Hit the like button. Thumbs up. But well.